Welcome, elites, to the Tankers Club. In this first episode, we're going to go through the high explosive changes and feel what we feel. With me, as always, is Ary. How you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm fine, and
Oh,
I'm
amazing.
interested to see what is going down in the high explosive town. So I'm going to read through the
Oh,
article, and we can give our opinion there. So we're navigating to the general news Sandbox high explosive shells for 2021. It's one of these talking points, along with Matchmaker and all these other things that people have been talking about. Although, to be honest, I haven't really heard that much complaining about high explosive ever. But shells in general, of course, has been a hot topic
yes.
for a while. So, previous high explosive shell tests on the sandbox proved very useful. Okay.
Okay.
They emphasized the value of high explosive shells and gave us a direction for further reworking the shell type. The survey results, feedback, and statistics provided us with the necessary information on how to change the high explosive shell damage mechanics. The tests also made it clear to us that the suggested changes did not meet your expectations, especially those of you who use high explosive shells and actively played in vehicles equipped with howitzers. What were those changes in the previous tests?
Oh, I don't have anything available right now. I think higher pen but way lower damage.
Oh, and
Was that
wasn't it
it?
the stun mechanics? Like they lent on it even further, so it was like rapid fire, constant stunning, stuff like that. Is that what they're referring to?
I think the howitzers would more be like the M4 Shermans and the Panzer IV-H tanks. That would be
Yes,
downgraded.
they're downgraded, but I'm talking about the HE mechanics they're talking about are the splash stun mechanics. That I think the
Ah,
last test was like, let's lean into that, and everyone was like, you know what? No, let's not. I'm not sure. Anyway, today we invite you to test the updated high explosive shells and decide whether the World of Tanks community is satisfied with this concept. Note that in this version, high explosive shells can penetrate armor, but it is the damage of non-penetrating shots that was changed. Please assess the changes from different perspectives, complete the
perspectives.
questionnaire, and
Oh,
provide your direct feedback. Well, there's a questionnaire for people to fill out afterwards.
but also
Um,
assess the change from different perspectives.
well,
It's
any
quite
good
hard for
tester
the
would
average
do that.
player.
If you gave it to a quality control team, they're going to try and break the game, right? They're going to
Yeah,
try and
of course.
use it in a light tank, that has barely but any bonus damage, no real penetration. You wouldn't normally use it. So let's try. Let's see how useful it isn't. And that's the way it would go. So anyway, our main goal is to keep the things you enjoy most about high explosive shells: fun and exciting gameplay.
I have to laugh for that one already.
I guess they mean KV2 derping.
I
That's
think so,
the
yes.
the fun and exciting gameplay that high explosive shells provide. Okay.
But it's only for the one that's shooting it. Also, the tier 10 TDs, like the FV,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the Doom
Exactly.
Barn, it's it could be fun. It's like fun if you pen, but on the other side, it's
For the other guy. Okay, whatever. Ease
yeah,
of use, yes, absolutely. You
yeah,
you click on someone with high explosive, you don't really aim. As a noob, that's fine, right? If you're someone new to the game, or you're somebody who maybe isn't so caring about penetration and armor, and you just want to quickly click, or if you're going at high speeds and you just want to spam someone and annoy them, or if they're in cover, yeah, absolutely. Ease
yeah.
of use, the less thinking of the shells if you're not great. Although I would argue high explosives, when you've mastered the game, is the hardest shell to use correctly compared to the others. I mean, heat,
Oh, definitely,
yeah.
yes. Because if you don't really know when to use it, it's
Uh-huh.
just the worst shell in the game. And when
Hmm.
you do know when to use it, it's the best shell in the game
Yeah, exactly. And
for
high
the
chances of
situation.
causing damage.
So
So I don't know what
yeah,
number one, the first point, and the third point. That's the same thing to me. But okay.
yeah, yeah. Like causing damage is fun and exciting. That's what the game is basically, doing damage to other tanks.
Yep. However, at the same time, we want to improve the behavior of high explosive shells during the following negative scenarios: causing high point blank damage to well armored vehicles, no matter which part
Basically,
of their
yeah.
armor is getting hit. Uh,
That would be the 279E. Everybody shoots that thing with HE. It's like one after the other and doing 300 damage a
Right.
shot, even though you're only having 650 alpha or something.
Because it is a very weird. For anyone who doesn't know how high explosive shells work now, it's probably the wrong video for you. But just in case, the it just does an AOE circle depending on the circumference of the explosive radius, and then it finds whatever the weakest point is. So if you fire at the side of a tank, and for some reason the top armor is really weak, it will always do damage to the top of the tank, and that's not the way high explosive works in real life. It's a really poor simulation. So I totally get why they want to change it, and in some scenarios it's kind of bad.
Yeah, because it would always find a viewport or something,
Mhm.
damage that, and do extra damage to the tank.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the next point, the lack of demand for high explosive shells in low and medium caliber guns. Well, that's because, again, the radius is so small that it doesn't find this weak spot, and therefore the way that it interacts with armor is really bad and does basically nothing. So it's either too useful or not useful at all, right?
Exactly. You nailed that point. Holy moly.
Some other frustrating aspects of the current mechanics, for example, the situation where your enemy sets your engine on fire after hitting the commander's cupola. I don't know of this. What is this?
I've never experienced it, but apparently that can happen. That that the engine is too close and it just does internal damage there, or
Okay.
external into the internal component. Like what? How does? I've never seen it, but
Okay,
apparently when it
so they
happens.
actually explain the points. We just read and gave our own opinion, but in the next section, they actually
Oh,
expand on their points they just talked about. So, fun, exciting gameplay unique to the game. Without a doubt, high explosive shells are the most thrilling shell type in the game. Upon penetration, which rarely occurs, they cause high damage, sometimes a lot more than expected. As a result, you remember such memorable. Well, yeah, that's what we were saying. It's the same as the third point. High chances of causing. Ah,
yeah.
no, I see. Okay, so they're splitting off the high chance to cause some damage, so like up 50 damage or 21 damage, right? They're
Ah.
separating that from the, KV2 derp, ah, ha ha ha, I just killed you for no reason
Oh,
moments,
I
which
see.
is fantastic, of course. The ease of causing damage, yes, you aim for the weak
Yeah.
spots. Cons, yes, we went through that. Impossible to detect how much damage you'll cause or take. I'm not a big fan of prediction. I think it's the detriment of many games. Games like StarCraft, where everything is mathematical, literally plus one, minus one. Everything's really simple but obvious mathematics. It's okay, but then you get determinism. And determinism is a game mechanic function where basically the game becomes predictable and skill actually differentiates you more. The problem with that is people
Yeah.
don't actually want that. It's not fun to come home after work, you're a bit tired, you play some games of World of Tanks, and that guy who spent all day playing tanks just owns you because he knows all of the mechanics inside and out. The random element actually enables, let's say, casual weekend warriors to uh, do
Well
better
put.
because it does give them situations where in a single moment in time they luck out, and it allows them to perform better than the pro that on the average does better, but in a certain moment can get screwed by that. And you know
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of keeping the variability in that.
Well, that causes the most fun in random battles for the most people. I mean,
Well,
I agree. If you're on the other side of the spectrum and you want the deterministic gameplay, but you have to realize that indeed the top crowd or like everybody that plays the game doesn't want that. And, like the majority wants the random element to stay. And
yeah.
yeah, it's. But I mean, for high explosive shells, the impossibility to predict damage is not something I'm experienced with because whenever I use high explosive, I just know I'm gonna penetrate the shot.
Well,
I
for me, and I think I
um,
did it in one of my replays I didn't send you today, but when I use high explosive, sometimes it's just simply I don't think I can reliably penetrate that guy, and I want to do morale damage to him. Constantly getting a little bit of HP damage from most players is just enough to make you think, oh, my place is useless, right?
yeah.
This really good position where I can basically shoot and take no damage is amazing. And then you get one or two bits of HP damage, and you're like, oh no, they can hurt me here. I should find an even better place, which doesn't exist, right? So against medium skilled players or low skilled players who have good positioning, high explosive can dig them out, cause morale damage. And I don't care in those scenarios how much damage I'm doing per se. Like I don't, I shoot and it does 100, and then the next one does 20, and I'm like, whatever. It's just high
Yeah,
explosive,
you make
right?
it sound like an RTS where you have the little motivational bar or whatever the routing bar, and you just lower that one.
Oh, my camera just died. I just saw it turn off. I think I think it went to sleep. Where were we at when I died?
The impossibility to predict damage, and
Yeah.
well, I think that's fair.
Yes,
It's,
exactly. It's fine. I think everyone, whatever I said last, I'm sure is absolutely fine. Everyone gets it. Okay, so our goal is to improve the behavior of high explosive shells in these three scenarios. Okay, let's see. Change the damage mechanics. Transition from damage within the burst radius to damage at the point of impact. That's just fantastic. I've always considered the three shell types to be different scenarios. So in my head, this has already been the way it's working, right? You've got, well, I know there's more than three shell types now, but AP is the all-rounder. It's the most forgiving because it has more normalization,
yeah.
right? And does good penetration, good damage, right? It's the reliable shell. Then you had the armor piercing, which was harder to use because it has less normalization, and it also changes the muzzle velocity. And if you're used to firing AP, actually firing faster muzzle velocity is a hindrance, not a help.
Yes, the armor
And vice
penetrating
versa.
composite rigid.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
And then you've got heat shells, which is exactly the same again, but even more extreme. There's no normalization. And in this case, there's more damage, right, with heat? Or less damage?
No, that
Less
hasn't
damage.
changed.
It
Usually the
hasn't changed. The
same.
same damage as
Yeah,
AP, is it? Okay, so it's basically the same shell, but going less and less normalization. So to me, that was worth something,
and
I
more
understand.
pen, right? Like
Yes,
less
exactly.
norm.
It's
Yes.
more pen and less normalization. So it's harder to use. So when people say like, oh, the noob shell is the heat shell, actually I find that noobs find heat useless because they fire it in a way that AP actually helps them more. But this is an argument that I know that you probably disagree with.
That's hard.
But
Yeah.
I find AP the easiest to use. And those weird moments where you have like a Batchat driving across the top, right? And you
Yeah.
fire and he gets like no penetration with heat. But with AP, you pen every time. And that's because it has all those weird angles at the high distance, and the normalization helps you pen. So in those situations, AP would have helped you compared to heat in those weird situations.
Yeah, well, I think that you could argue more points where if you're brawling in the city and you want to keep someone tracked around the corner, you don't want to shoot heat. Heat just
Yeah.
gets eaten by all the spaced armor, and
Oh, yeah. That's the other
that's
thing, of
yeah,
course. Heat has a trigger point. So it triggers on the very first contact, which means it can't shoot through terrain and it can't shoot through, well, certain thickness terrain. And it gets
uh-huh.
triggered over a certain thickness of space armor, too. So some space armor works, some space armor doesn't. But I think the vast majority it does. Yeah, so I always like those differences,
Yep.
and I totally agree with the idea. They haven't done it yet, but at WG Fest they announced that they would do lower damage for the APCR shells, right? So that it still has the higher penetration, has the worst normalization, and lower damage now. And if they equalize the price of all the shells, so you're just firing like a more, well, it just costs the fire, right? Which is the normal economics of World of Tanks.
Yep.
It becomes interesting at this point. Then the three major shells are all vastly different, right? And you use them in different scenarios. I don't know. For the average player, they feel like they have their strong and weak points already. At least in my mind, they're very distinct, and I think the lines blur once you max out all the crews and
Yeah, I
you have
see.
certain gameplay at tier 10.
I think it whenever you make the shells cost the same, to get back to that point, it would be kind of weird. We would have to need to change the economics of the game, because
Yeah.
I think you will gain too many credits. Perhaps make everything more expensive online, on par. Not like have AP cost too much to detrimental cost, so you make loss on a regular tier 7 game, for example. But
Right.
big enough that it doesn't allow people to have like millions upon millions upon millions of credits. Because that's what's gonna happen if
Well,
you lower the
isn't the
cap too much.
theory? I mean, I didn't. If anyone's like thinking that I'm talking from a point of view of wargaming, I'm not. I've never been involved with World of Tanks more than just making these videos for them. So this is from a gamer point of view. But from my understanding, it was like roughly tier 6 is where you're meant to break even on a standard account, and tier 8 is where you're meant to break even on a premium account if you're an average player, right? If you're a bit worse, it's a bit beforehand, and if you're a bit better, it's a bit later, right?
All right.
That is the basic economics. If you think about it, right, when you're
That makes
leveling up,
sense. Yeah.
yeah, when you hit tier 6, you stop making much profit and it's really hard. But if you're a very good player, it's probably tier 7, right? And tier 10, there's no way to make a profit unless you're really good at the game and you're really economical. Like you penetrate every shot, you never get hit and you never repair, right? And
That,
then you can make a profit just about,
that
even with prem accounts, right?
But the thing is,
Um,
we do get credit bonuses. So whenever your credit bonuses is
yes.
activated from the clan, from your own, it just well, it increases the amount of credits income so much that even at
Yeah.
tier 10 with regular ammo and with consumables, you can still
Well,
run
that's okay, right? You're using a
profits.
boost to do that, and I like the idea of because What has to make money, so I'm not anti-business,
Yeah.
and to do like a weekend booster, right? So for the weekend, I'm going to play like Friday afternoon all the way through to Sunday night. I'm going to make sure I basically have boosters active the entire time, and I'm going to level up, right? I'm going to boost through. I remember doing that with League of Legends as well, right? So
Yeah, with the double
like
XP weekends.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, and do it for a weekend, and then just like skip through half the levels because I think it gets to level 30 if I remember rightly for League of
Yeah,
Legends
yeah,
back then.
yeah. Well, not anymore. It's more, I
Yeah,
believe.
so, I have not played in years, but yes, exactly. So that to me makes sense, right? So I'm going to have a dedicated weekend. I'm going to get all these bonuses. I'm going to really grind that tree and get to the next tank. Those were exciting days. But if I remember when I played standard before premium accounts, um, and I can tell you a story of when I first got the premium account for the very first time, and
Oh.
it won't be for the reason you think because it doesn't exist anymore. The
Oh.
reason. So yeah, so I went through and I remember buying myself a Matilda, tier 4 British. And that was because I think it's a lend lease and it's on the USSR tree. This was before the British tree was released. And being a British guy
Oh.
wanting to drive a British tank, I grabbed the lend
Mm-hmm.
lease Matilda. I think I want to say it could have been the Churchill, but I think it was the Matilda. And that earns more credits. And that's when I learned that you get better economic bonuses on a tank that's kind of meh, right?
Yeah.
So like back then, the idea of premium tanks was really to balance this economy. So the original economy is what I'm talking about. The modern economy is far more complicated,
Mm-hmm.
and I have no idea how it works. But it was roughly that, right? Tier 6 was where you started breaking even if you're an average player, and you needed to play the lower tiers in your tier 4 prems to kind of get that money to continue grinding your tier 6. If you got a prem account, it's all the way to tier 8. Then you jump in your tier 8 prems to make your money so you can grind your tier 9s and 10s. And that's how the average person got through Water Tanks, basically always doing this with their credits. And that was the core original game mechanic of the metagame, the economy. And nowadays it's so complicated, I wouldn't even want to guess what the modern economy is, but I think that was the original one.
The modern economy is so weird. Also, the entire grinding aspect has changed so much over the years. I believe for the
Yeah.
better because it's way easier to grind your
Yeah,
trees. You can get way
agreed.
faster into the action with your higher tier tanks, more often with your tier 10s. And well, I believe tier 9 is the sweet spot now for matchmaking. And
Tier 9.
tier
Okay.
9, because I believe if you get a full tier 9 match, it's the most diverse. And there are not many tier 9 bad tier 9 tanks, so to say. The only bad tier 9
Okay.
tanks would be the new Concept 1B that's going to release soon or be available soon, and the Panzerwagen, the 50-ton thing.
Dude, I can make any tier 9 look bad. Okay.
I mean, but these tanks are so good that they're better than a lot of tier 10s. And that's what makes the tier 9 well off. Whenever the 1B gets released, I think then tier 7 becomes the best matchmaking. Because also tier
Okay.
8 is kind of skewed with armor, and so I'll pick tier
Tier 8
7.
used to be the sweet spot. I used to play Tier 8 almost
Yeah, that's why we had
exclusively.
ESL there. My god, that was so fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it has so much diversity, and that makes the game more fun. And in Tier 10, things are a little bit less diverse and less extreme, or
I think
was.
I think they are now very extreme. When you
Yeah,
have a
okay.
tier 8 TD and you bump the alpha up to 1750 and you're suddenly a tier 10. Like, oh.
Well, I still remember
Oh.
where the Tier 2 pre-TD German, I forget its name, I don't think it's even in the tech tree anymore, but it was the precursor for the Hetzer. It had frontal armor of like 32, and it was basically invincible. From the front, that tank was just amazing at tier 2. And nowadays, loads of other tier 2 tanks just could
Oh,
easily penetrate
the
that like it's made
Panzer
of butter.
3J.
No, before
No?
the Panzer 3J. Panzer 3J wasn't even on the tech tree.
Oh, okay. Oh,
God, it was precursor to the Mauser 2, whatever it's called, the Mauser 2. I forget my tank names. I haven't been tier 2 German for so long.
there's
But I think they got rid
some.
of it recently when they did the tech tree simplification. And I think it disappeared. But there was a time where I had a gap in the tech tree. So I went from this tank to the Hetzer, and
Yeah.
then there was a few tanks between them for a while. And then I made the mistake of, for some reason, one day I just decided to unlock all the tanks between them with my free XP. Even though like that was a complete bragging point to have a gap in the tech tree, but I decided to
Yeah,
fuck
like
it up.
I've played here, guys. Look at that gap.
Yeah,
Good luck
it's
making
so
that one.
odd.
Yes, I have the same gap in the. I think the U.S. heavies. They had the same where they reorganized the entire tree, and suddenly it
Yeah.
freed up a bunch of tanks that I normally wouldn't have. Oh,
My first tier 10, I did not earn as a tier 10.
what?
Can you guess which one it was?
The IS-4.
Yes. So IS4 was a tier 9, and it got moved to tier 10. So my first tier 10 was actually a tier 9. I just got it for free. It
Easy.
got moved. Easy cut.
Nice.
um,
Let's move towards the points of the damage. Change the
yeah,
damage
holy
mechanics.
shit.
Number one was the burst that you so elaborately explained. That was nice. And number two would be the penetration of screens, track wheels, and small obstacles, because that's new.
Yeah, actually, we didn't actually finish
Oh, did
the
you?
new way they're going to do high
Oh,
explosive, and I
oh,
just want to touch upon
yeah.
that. So, upon penetration of enemy armor, nothing will change. If a shell gets inside the vehicle, you still do great damage. Um, So the idea is, upon impact, the armor, the high explosive shell, will still try and penetrate. But if this penetration is not high enough, damage will be calculated at the point of contact of the armor. At the same time, after exploding, small pieces of shrapnel spore will be created inside the vehicle. By scattering inside the vehicle hull, the spore causes damage to modules and crews as well as the armor itself. So what they're doing is now when you hit the tank, your high explosive will basically act like a heat. But then, like, if you ever seen the graphic of a heat in action, it's like spraying shit inside. They're going to do that now with a high explosive and now do like a shockwave attack inside, which means the spore liner should severely reduce the high explosive. It all makes sense now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the it looks like they're going to reduce the high explosive damage depending on the thickness of the armor compared to the penetration value of the high explosive. Let me see.
I can't really see if there's anything about the angle of attack.
It shouldn't matter, right? It shouldn't matter. If they're going to do this correctly, high explosive should touch and then explode, right? It shouldn't try to penetrate more than... let's say you have 100 pieces of armor and you have 50 penetration. The shell will go in 50 at a 90-degree angle, then explode, right?
Right. Yeah.
So that's in theory what they should do. So then the thickness of the explosion will be 50, which is the remaining hit spot. So it still makes sense to try and hit them on the weak spot, but they're now going to do it like that, I think. So it's going to be like a heat.
I have to aim it just a little bit more.
Yeah. Let's see. So with the new mechanics, the FV 4005 fires a high explosive shell at the side of Mouse's frontal cheeks, which are 260mm thick. The shell hits the armor, but due to the insufficient penetration value, it does not penetrate. Instead, the shell explodes on the surface. Spore is created inside the vehicle, causing damage to the mouse, but the value is noticeably smaller, 200 to 350 HP. What's the damage of the FV 4005 high explosive?
1750. So
Well,
it's
they didn't show us the...
what's the calculation here? It
They're
said
not showing
before.
it.
It said that they didn't. They wanted to that it's impossible to predict how much damage it will cause. But
And now they're not telling us what they're going to do.
yeah,
Okay, I don't like that section. They should have shown us this value, this penetration, this, and given us the calculation. But it looks like they don't want to.
yeah, they gave us a
All right.
point, and then they said they didn't do anything with it. The point of unpredictability, and well,
Can you still shoot under the tank and let it explode? I guess not.
no,
That's weird.
So
I don't like that.
that was pretty good if you knew what you were doing and you were shooting into the.
Well, it's
into the ground.
explosive, right?
Yeah. But now it doesn't. It should do 0 damage. Yeah.
You know, I would love to talk to Richard and ask him how high explosive, the Challenger, sorry, and ask him like how do high explosive work in the real world, because as far as I'm aware, high explosive artillery works against infantry by causing shrapnel damage and shockwaves, and against tanks it's the same. It's about causing exactly what they're saying here, the spall damage. But I thought that would happen because it's the shockwave of the compressed air that hits the tank to cause the damage. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's actually simply you have to get a direct hit, otherwise it's pointless and useless. And if that's the case, then kudos, that's brilliant. But I like the idea of like the gamey like explosion doing damage to the tank.
You know, like when T95 coming up to you and you fire the ground and you damage his underbelly. That was just meta gaming.
Exactly. Okay, so penetration of screens, tracks, and small obstacles. Now, this might be controversial. I'm holding my tongue with this one. I want to see exactly what it says. With the new mechanics, we want high explosive shells to be able to penetrate screens, as well as tracks of the wheels of wheeled vehicles at a point of impact. We also want them to be able to penetrate insignificant or destructible obstacles, fences, destructible structures, etc. So, my guess before we go on is that they're going to have the same thing as heat, where they can go through a certain amount of penetration before they detonate. Let's see. The principle of their action will be the same as that of high explosive shells. However, if after penetrating a screen, an AP shell hits armor that is thicker than the remaining penetration value of the shell, no damage is scored. For high explosive shells in this situation, the spall mechanism will take effect and cause guaranteed damage.
But how
Now,
much? It doesn't guarantee damage. Is it just going to be a meme?
No, it will cause guaranteed damage. Well, you see, that's what they're trying to say. High explosive will always cause damage, but is it reduced by armor thickness remaining, or the damage between the damage and the armor thickness? So, for example, when the high explosive explodes, it does 1,700 damage. 1,700 damage is compared to the remaining armor between the inside soft bit and where it exploded, right?
Yeah.
And then the distance, so the thickness of the armor, is the only thing that's calculated. Or does the thickness of armor go against the penetration of the shell, blah, 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 blah? Like, how does that exactly work?
For what I can get out of this article, I just think it's the armor thickness here. I don't think it's like,
yeah,
you
okay,
shoot
so
through
you're
it
right.
something.
The shell will not penetrate the armor, instead explode on the surface. So that sounds like they're not even trying to penetrate the armor at that point. And the resulting sphere will again find the hull cover, which is 50mm thick. The mouse will save 570 to 850. With the new mechanics, when firing at the gun mantlet, the high explosive shell simply doesn't have enough armor penetration to pierce the screen and reach the armor. Since in the current system, as in the old system, with the new mechanics, when firing at the gun mantlet, the high explosive shell simply doesn't have enough armor penetration to pierce the screen and reach the armor. Since there's no point of impact to the armor, no spall is created. So it does seem like they're getting rid of the explosive radius.
Yeah, no more T95 memes.
How does it work with artillery then? So artillery has to hit or nothing?
I don't think that they're. This is just for tanks, right? I don't think they're chasing.
It says high explosive shells, right? So it doesn't matter who's firing high explosive; it's still high explosive.
I believe that change will be the third change in Sandbox. That they changed RD. I don't think they touched any RD just yet.
We need to go into Sandbox and play with this, I think. Okay. With the new mechanics, when firing gun mantlet, the high explosive shell simply doesn't have enough armor penetration to pierce the screen and reach the armor. Since there's no point of impact, the armor's for everything. Yeah. Okay. Okay. To cause full damage after piercing a screen track obstacle, the high explosive will also need to penetrate the armor. Yeah. Whatever. Damage probability. Will they give us the formula? I don't think so. Based on these changes, high explosive shells that do not penetrate will instead deal lower amount of guaranteed damage so long as they hit the enemy's armor. This damage will depend on the shell's base damage and on the thickness of armor. So there you go.
How easy? Yep.
It's gonna be simply damage versus armor, not penetration versus armor.
So penetration values are then kind of meh. They are determining, of course, if it goes through the armor, but other than that,
and goes through
nothing.
screens as well. So it is not exactly unimportant. Okay, let me ask you this: as an engineer, right?
Yeah.
If you set a freaking piece of detonation inside a wall, right? So you drill a hole and put some freaking explosives in the middle of a wall and explode. It will do more damage than if you put it on the side of the wall and explode.
Way more. Yeah.
Right? So I don't get it.
Because else the shockwaves, like the energy, will dissipate in the room And now you have,
But
well, a closed environment,
right,
and you get a nice little bang, and the entire wall will be gone, so to say.
we should talk to the challenger about this because well, okay, maybe we're moving away from realism and moving towards simulation one
It,
step further. And I know that explosive doesn't work like that as well. High explosive would never
with the nice
really,
circle and
yeah, with a nice circle. That was never good anyway. But is this? Are they just simplifying it for the sake of
I
simplifying
think
it?
they
Because
are. I think
they
they
know the
are.
angle of attack, they know the normalization, they know the thickness, they know the remaining armor. They could have easily added it to the calculation, or they're just not giving us the exact formula here because of trade secrets.
I think they're simplifying it a lot. And
We should
it
test.
goes through all the simple object, not losing any pen, I believe, because I don't think they didn't say it here that it will lose penetration upon going through certain objects. Well, of course it should, but
Yeah.
yeah, it just feels like whenever you hit the target, the penetration value that it has, will it go through or no? And then it just compares, if no,
Yeah.
how much damage it should do, but then doesn't give us a formula. So it's like, okay, will it be always the same wherever I hit with the, for example, on the mouse? If you have an upper frontal plate of the 140, will you always do 500 damage if you don't pen with the FV, for example? Or
It doesn't seem like you want to aim though with the high. So if they did what I suggested, which is where it penetrates somewhat and then explodes, and the penetration distance matters, then aiming for the weak spot still makes sense if you can't penetrate. But if you, it's either absolute, you either can or cannot penetrate. Oh no,
that's
I guess it does matter,
it
right?
does, yeah.
Because
You're still
yeah, it
aiming
always matters.
at lower armor,
Yeah.
but if you
Just the penetration value matters less, right?
yeah,
If you have a gun that you just don't think you'll ever penetrate their armor, right? You still aim for the weak spot, but now your penetration value is worthless, right? There's no point buying. Let's say you could upgrade your shells, and I hope War Game doesn't take this suggestion, but let's say you could upgrade your individual shells and add an extra 10 penetration to the shell, right?
yeah,
Like by giving a certain, metallic tip, titanium tip or something like that, right? Make them more expensive, but you get an extra 10 penetration. And God, I hope I didn't give someone a good idea here. Um, for a high explosive shell, if this mechanic existed, it just doesn't help. You either penetrate or you don't, and therefore it doesn't matter. Just going for pure damage numbers matters. So the higher the damage number, the better.
yeah. That's what I think as well. But that wouldn't that still mean that your low alpha HE is still useless?
Say again. You're low.
Your low caliber shells.
Yeah,
That
would they have low alpha?
low alpha,
The
low
shells are still
pen.
useless. Well, they said, or they claimed, right at the beginning of the article, that the inconsistency is what matters. Okay, so if you're always meant to be doing 300 damage with a low cal high explosive, and on that particular arm piece which will never penetrate, will always cause the same ish damage. If you hit the exact same spot, the exact same angle, it will always cause 70 damage plus minus 25%, I assume. So
Yeah,
then it will be far more consistent than the old method where, because of the explosion, and if it 1 millimeter touches the top of the tank, it does full damage, and then you hit again, it does 2 damage because it doesn't touch the top of the tank. It'll feel
true.
more it'll feel more consistent, right? And if
It
that was the
does.
real complaint, then okay.
Well, then they fixed that little part. Yeah, true.
The old tanks though that had weak spots in the driver's hatch and stuff like that, they're going to be very vulnerable to high explosive now.
But then again, with the low or medium caliber guns, I'm looking at damage probability now in the article. Now that I see that you will be do minor damage, because there are so many games that I've seen that someone shot high explosives but did 0 damage because they hit the upper frontal plate, and even with the swear, it didn't do any damage. And now you should
Really?
do
I've not
some.
really had that as an experience. I was
No.
driving the T95 today, and I was holding back 3 or 4 tanks and getting hit by artillery, as always with the T95. And
Hmm.
the tank came around the corner, shot me twice, and I wiggled and managed to die. He was going for the cupolas, and I jerked and then went forward. I was doing all my tactics to avoid him getting the penetrating hit on the cupola. He then just loaded a high explosive, fired twice, each time doing roughly 50 damage, and killed me because I was really low hit points at that point. If he hadn't switched to high explosive, he wouldn't have done anything. He would have kept picking up the shot and getting 0 damage. But because he switched to high explosive, he started consistently doing 50 damage, right?
Yeah.
So was he really finding a weak spot to do that 50 damage? Like that's my experience with the original high explosive, always doing consistently low damage, surprisingly getting high damage numbers when you accidentally get a fluke hit onto a weak spot. But
I believe
with
that.
normal calibers, not extreme
Yeah.
calibers.
Yeah, I believe that he was just shooting somewhere near the top or anywhere that the sphere could just hit the viewport and do 50 damage. And I
Yeah,
believe with the new
of a
system,
gun
it
that's
would.
meant to do 400 damage, what is 50 damage?
I mean, enough to
You see?
finish you.
Well, yeah, no, I'm not complaining about that, but I'm pointing like it didn't find a weak spot and then penetrate. It clearly did less damage,
Yeah.
right? So I don't know. If this is clearly a problem that needs sort of fixing. I'm not sure if this feels good, but we're gonna have to try it out because if we try it out, we'll then be able to give you guys the elites some edge with the new mechanics. Because I don't think they're gonna go back to the drawing board. Seems like a okay. Let's test this out, but I feel like this is one of those ones which is kind of slam dunk. No one cares enough unless they've missed something like artillery with explosive range and stuff like that, radius, or some bug is found. But I think from a logic point of view, I don't think they're going to step back from this. This doesn't
I don't
seem
think
like
so
something
either.
you would have to.
Even if you're full against this is going to go through. Like
I think so. Yeah.
it makes kind of sense, except for the part where it doesn't get stopped by little obstacles and tracks.
It's high explosive. It's meant to
Yeah,
get well. I mean, it depends, right? Because
it's a
the
game.
idea with heat is exactly the same, right?
True. Yeah.
If literally a bird got in the way and detonated the shell, they would be less useful. You know what I mean, though, right?
Yeah.
If a leaf fell from a tree and hit the shell in real life, it would be useless, right? So there obviously were and are mechanics and mechanisms in place in real life that would allow this to happen. To need a certain amount of force, and this is why there's bombs that are undetonated to this day from World War II, where their fuse or the pressure mechanism to stop them detonating early, right, failed to trigger, or the fuse was faulty. There's other reasons why, but there's a lot of that where like the thing that actually sets it off just didn't, and
Yeah.
then like you
True.
go stand on it and it detonates
That
because you
makes
press it
sense.
at the right direction,
Yes,
right?
that makes
So,
sense.
this is a thing that exists.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So let's move on to how this is going to change and interact with other things like the crew skills, because they're of course introducing crew 2.0 at the same time as introducing high explosives. So this is a topic of conversation that's going to bleed into each other. But there's one for me that seemed to strike obviously, which was intuition, right? So the new intuition is up to 85% chance to instantly switch your shell or something like that.
What? It's 17, as far as I know.
I think I saw someone do a calculation to say you can get it up to that. Or maybe it was in the video, the high explosive shells rebalance video. Like if you do this and then this and then this and this and this,
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. With all the true. Yeah.
yeah,
But
it got up really high. But is
the
it
crew
still
skill
worth it?
changed. It's no longer.
Yes.
It instantly does it, but it lowers the reload by then 80 something percent.
Really? Is that the new
Yeah,
mechanic?
from switching. So whenever it's
that's
already
fantastic.
lowered, that's something that can really help players
Yeah.
determine or make last minute decisions like, oh, I want to fire a high explosive, and you wouldn't be waiting for the entire reload, and then your odds or your
Well, this is it, right?
thing is
If you're
gone.
going to create 3 unique shells or 4 or 5 unique shells, but you're going to penalize the player for using this mechanic, it sucks, right? So
Exactly.
switching between one shell and another shell, you lose the shot. So if you're in the situation, you see, oh, I should be using high explosive. Well, you're always one shell behind, right? You're always one shell behind. But if you have intuition at a high level, right, having a 20% loss of reload is not that bad if you get the perfect shell for the situation.
I would say it's a trap for the better players to take this crew skill. Because
Trap.
you should already know when you should be firing high explosives. You should know this. And like the highest skill level players, they care about the 0.1 second reload. They care about all those minute little boosts in DPM and whatever. They would rather fire the AP shell, heat shell now and then wait and maybe just let go of the opportunity for firing the archer, for example. The one moment where you would ever use high intuition would be when you've already made a mistake and you want to make up for it. But
Right. Well, that's the point, right?
are we?
Some crew skills need to be help the
Yes.
player who's made a mistake, or right. Let's say an enemy drove around the corner, heavily armored one, because he knows he's heavily armored and he's seen you there, and you've been firing AP at everybody around, and then he comes around the corner, and goes, "Aha!" and you're like, "Oh my god!" So you know instantly, AP will not help me here, right? And you're
Those.
just about finished
Yes.
loading, right?
Yeah, I
And then you're
see
like,
where you're
"Okay, switch to
going.
high explosive, rapid reload, bam."
Or just
You know?
go to heat. But yes, but those
Okay.
moments, those are zero. There's better crew skills because it's like a reactive crew skill, so to say.
Okay, let's then step down from the top 1%,
Yeah,
right? Then you've got the players that have weaknesses. So if you're not in the top 1%, you're going to have certain aspects of your gameplay that is really weak. So for example, for me, it's positioning and map knowledge. That's my biggest weakness. And well, maybe patience, but you know, in a
we'll get
brawl,
to that
I'm
soon.
very yeah, in a brawl, I'm very good, and predicting what shell I need and how to aim, I'm fine. I don't need help. Intuition doesn't help me so much. But because of my map knowledge weakness, sometimes I think I'm in this situation. I've made the correct decision, but actually there's a hill in the way. And I'm just like, oh god damn it! So everything I thought and I made the correct decision about is now not actually what's happening, not the
Yeah,
reality. So this would actually cover my mistakes in my map knowledge, right? So when you have like the
exactly.
top, I don't know, 30% players, right? There starts becoming points of their gameplay
Right.
that these sort of skills will maybe enhance their gameplay
Oh,
and cover up
definitely.
for the
Yes.
bits that they're not willing to learn. I'm not
Yeah.
willing to master every map because I just don't have the time.
For those let's say the casual players, for the casual audience, the new high
Okay.
explosives and the intuition changes, they'll be very good. Like honestly
Yes.
superb. It's
Makes the game feel a bit more fun
yeah.
and
You can
casual.
you can like switch quickly switch between shells. Always do some damage with high explosive. Those are the things that people really actually need. Because I've looked at a lot of replays due to Best Replay of the Week and just seeing so many little tiny mistakes, loading the wrong
Yeah.
shells, HE not doing damage on the last capping at decap attempt, things like
Yeah.
that. Some things, of course, out of their own power, but with these new crew changes, I believe that we can see way more people taking advantage of the high explosive shells, which is nice because that means that people
Yeah.
will be better at the game. So, and I think if the player base gets better or makes better decisions, then that wouldn't that mean a more fun overall game?
I just had something and I think I've forgotten it. There was something you said that just made me think about the next stage of players, like the people who are good enough, they can play the game competently. So we're talking the middle brand, everybody from 48% up to 54% or whatever. So you're not uniquely great, you're not bad in any particular way, you're not making your team lose, but you're not really that often making them win. You guys would really benefit from things like the new intuition changes because, oh no, clip tanks. That's what I was
Got
thinking
him.
about, right?
Yeah.
Clip tanks surely benefit from intuition better than anyone else. So you've got a particular clip loaded, and then a situation changes. 80% reload speed to change it to a different clip would clearly
If that
be
works
more
that
useful.
way, that would be pretty cool. That would be
Right.
pretty cool. I
So,
would
like,
go even then. Yes, I would go in a clip tank like a TVP. I would get just one meme, high explosive clip, just so whenever I'm loaded,
yes,
and I just go
exactly.
like, oh,
You would never take that normally because how can you predict you need a whole clip of high explosive? It's an incredibly rare situation.
never. But like taking 80% off of a 23 seconds reload, sign
Yeah.
me up.
Yep. It's like, got the opportunity. I want a high explosive clip. Okay, let's do it. This is a me moment gonna happen. It's possible, and it would not ever happen, or almost never happen. And most clip tanks have very, very little ammo, and you don't want
Yeah.
to take a whole clip of high explosive. It's very rare.
Also, TVP or Batchet. Batchet might be the best
Oh,
example.
didn't we have it in last best replays of the week?
Hey,
32
Batchet.
or 33? No, no, Batcha. A guy with a clip tank with high explosives, and he used it correctly, and he held it.
Oh yeah, yes, the
Which
3090,
one was it?
the 3090
Yeah.
on Sand River.
So
Yeah.
okay, it does happen,
Spoilers.
but
I wanna, yeah, it's a spoiler because this episode will come earlier. Oh shit!
oh, people can look forward to that. It's
Yeah,
preview for the show for the elites out there.
yeah, that was an
Okay,
amazing
so
clip. That thing would then happen more often. Yes.
it will happen more often.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's fun. It's dynamic gameplay. It's emerging gameplay. All these things are very good.
Yes.
And I feel that sometimes Water Tanks is a bit static, especially once you get to a certain level. You're like, everything happens in the way you predict it.
Yeah.
And you want emotions. It's the
But you
point of
always,
playing
I mean,
games, right?
whenever you do whatever that guy did, like the high explosive clip, he must have felt great. He penned
Yeah.
every shot, and he was like super. He must have felt super happy.
He held it as well. He held the clip way longer. I kept saying he's going to reload. He's got to reload. He's going to have to reload. And he did it. And then he found what he was looking for and finished off the clip.
So
and I was
now
like,
the amount of luck there as well. Yeah.
yeah.
He held it for over
the guy,
40
he
seconds.
read the map. He knew what he was looking for. But yeah, if any of the tank approached him during this period of time, he would have been caught with his pants down.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's true. Yeah. Some.
I have one last topic of conversation if you don't have one.
No. I'm out.
Okay. Why in the garage, when you mouse over your shells, is penetration listed with high number then low number, but damage low number to high number? For anyone with OCD out there, I'm sorry, but that apparently is something that's in the UI. I noticed it today. I don't think it used to be like that. It's clearly a change that's happened in the last few months or so. Something's happened.
Might be to trick the human mind or something. That would be my only guess. Like, oh, or a mistake. Well,
Hurt you.
it's a feature.
I read the Water Tanks UI. Brain hurts now.
Don't look too closely at it.
Yeah.
Trying to like teach another player how the UI works, how the garage works. Oh my god, it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
But then again, the counter would be, oh well, you make it better. It's also hard. It's just there's so many things that you need to show off in the garage. Tanks to modules to crews.
So much.
Oh my god, to missions. Your depot, as you've seen. Oh, yeah. There's too many things to list. So it's going to be a clusterfuck no matter what you do.
But still, this is just, come on. Anyway, I think our next step for you guys in this Tankers Club is for us to go to the Sandbox and to test out some of this high explosive and give our feedback directly to you. If you have your own opinion, please feel free to spam it here, Facebook, Discord, or wherever you wish. We basically follow everything because we're narcissistic like that.
In the comments, yeah. That's it.
Well,
I think let's play some Sandbox then in the near future. Do we know until when we can play it? It doesn't say something here.
Does it not say? Let me check the bottom of the article.
Scroll
But
down.
let's say we're going to do it this week anyway, because I think tomorrow or over the weekend will be the best thing. Here, download, install the Sandbox client. Wait till the Sandbox open the thing. Okay, no, there's a quiz. Wait, there's a quiz? Where's the quiz?
How well do you know World of Tanks?
But I can't click the quiz. Nothing works.
1 out of 10. What is the Oh, what? You have to click an answer and then press next. Oh, what the fuck? It
hold on.
gave it. Oh no! I just spent.
I have a script blocker that blocked the script, so it didn't work. Let me just trust the.
I just clicked on like all the things and I clicked the first answer, but that was wrong. Oh, rip.
No, where is it? The Google Manager, Water Tanks. Okay, I'm trusting only the wargaming.net ones and not the Google ones because I don't want Google tracking me. Here we go. Okay. So 1 out of 10. What is the Sandbox server? A server for all players where the next update is tested. A game mode for new players. A server where games other than Water Tanks are tested. A Sandbox is a platform to test game hypotheses and decide what to do with them in future. Well, it's actually 1 and 4, but I guess they have the test server and Sandbox is different.
Yeah, so they're different.
How do the current mechanics of causing damage with high explosive shells work upon non-penetrations? Damage scores with the burst point of impact, blah, blah, blah. Penetrating, damage score precision for the most. Yep, okay. 3. Do the current high explosive shells penetrate screens and small objects? They penetrate screens but not penetrate small obstacles. High explosives penetrate both screens and small obstacles? Neither. Within the new mechanics, do high explosive shells cause damage to vehicles if they explode on the ground? They cause damage!
No.
Because
no.
Wait, hold on. Within new mechanics. I was thinking old mechanics. No, I didn't read the question. What is the key feature of the new high explosive shell mechanics? Calculate your damage armor formed at the point the shell hits. Let me just double check. There's no further armor. Yeah. How do the new high explosive shells work when that's hitting small objects between the tracks? They attempt to penetrate. Upon non-penetration, explode. Yep, done.
Oh,
What is the
but they do
relationship
lose armor
between?
penetration here, it says.
Did it?
So they attempt to penetrate such obstacles, but they do lose their
Yeah.
armor penetration. That didn't say there in the article, now did it?
It just doesn't. I don't know. What is the relationship between armor thickness and the amount of damage caused upon non-penetrating it with new mechanics? Thicker the armor at the point of impact, the lower the damage caused. However, armor does not completely absorb damage. Done. What damage will be caused to a vehicle if the new high explosive shell does not penetrate the screen and fails to reach the armor? No damage will be caused. Within new mechanics, is it possible to cause full damage when firing through a track? It is possible if the high explosive penetrates the track. What? Oh, both the track and the armor.
Yeah.
Full damage.
It's
I didn't
full
read full damage.
damage.
Again, it's reading the question too quickly. It's a trick
Oh.
question. I got the concept. Fuck off. In which case did the new high explosive mechanics use nominal armor and effective armor? Okay, let's read that slowly. In which cases do the new high explosive shells mechanics use nominal armor and effective armor? When calculating penetration, the system uses effective armor, and then when calculating damage, the system uses nominal armor. Do you know what? I don't remember reading that in the article.
Well, I do know. But it's because
Okay, when calculating penetration and damage, armor thickness not considered. That's not true. When calculating penetration, nominal armor is used, and when calculating damage, effective armor is used. I think that is true. No, it's top one. When calculating penetration, the system uses effective armor, and when calculating damage, the nominal armor. Oh, okay.
So it tries to be AP, and then when it doesn't get to be an AP shell, it will be an HE at the point of impact. That's the thing.
That's
They
cool.
should have just
That's
said
cool.
that.
So,
It tries to be AP. It's exactly the same as like
Yeah.
AP. And
Well-
then a little bit different, of course, but
7 out of 10. 2 of them was misreading. I get it, though.
I have 6 out of 10.
That's because you memed through it.
You have understood the general idea.
Okay, this is our first time at doing the Tankers Club. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any feedback, of course, leave them in the comments. Give it a like to tell YouTube there is engagement and make us want to do more. I was Luke.
And that was Ary. Hey.
See you next time.
Oh, don't forget to look at the best rip of week 133.